Miami, the Magic City, it's got this global reputation, right?
Mm.
Dazzling beaches, that nightlife, the culture. But if you're actually planning a visit, maybe business, maybe just a vacation, what about the nitty-gritty, the practical stuff that makes a trip work? So today, for you, our listener, we're doing a deep dive into Miami-Dade, really focused on what you need to know as a visitor to have a smooth, informed trip. We've gathered some really invaluable sources here. We're looking at official county reports, stuff like water quality emergency plans, but also blending that with, real-world chat from locals, people living it day to day. Think of it as your essential guide, cutting past the tourist brochures.
Exactly. And what's really compelling, I think, is seeing how these different kinds of information come together. It gives you a much fuller picture. We're trying to get beyond that postcard view,
Yeah.
give you tangible info for your safety, your well-being, just enjoying your time there. It's not just what to know, but kind of why it matters when you're visiting.
All right, let's start with something totally fundamental, but maybe easily overlooked when you travel. Drinking water. Can you just, fill up your glass from the tap in Miami-Dade? What's the story with water quality there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the key thing here is the scale and the rigor of how Miami-Dade manages its water. The Water and Sewer Department, what ESD they call it, they deliver water to over 2.8 million people daily. And they are constantly monitoring for contaminants. They have to follow federal, state, and local laws. Their latest report, the 2024 one, it covers testing for that whole year, so it shows continuous oversight. It's pretty robust.
Okay, it definitely sounds robust. So where's all this water coming from in the first place?
Primarily, it's the Biscayne Aquifer,
Wow.
which is this huge natural underground sort of reservoir right below South Florida. It's porous rock, basically, and rainwater just seeps down and fills it up.
Okay, natural source.
hmm And then for parts of the supply, they use a process called reverse osmosis. It's pretty advanced. They take brackish water that's a bit salty, common near the coast, pre-treat it, pressurize it, and force it through these special membranes. It pulls out salt, sediment, molecules, ions, even bacteria.
Wow, okay. So it really gets filtered.
Yeah, big time. And after that, it's not done. They adjust the pH, degasify it, disinfect it with chlorine, add fluoride for dental health. Then it goes into the pipes to reach homes and hotels. Quite a journey, like you said.
That is quite a journey. Anything kind of surprising or interesting they test for that might make a visitor go, huh?
Well, they test for a really wide spectrum. You've got your microbial stuff, viruses, bacteria, obviously, but also inorganic things like salts and metals, pesticides, herbicides, various organic chemicals, and even naturally occurring radioactive elements.
Radioactive, like,
Yeah, so for example, radon-222. Radon for short. It's a natural gas, colorless, odorless, comes from uranium decay in soil, gets into air and water. Now, the report is clear. The health risk from radon in drinking water is considered very, very small, much less than radon in indoor air, for instance. But the fact they monitor for it, I think, shows how thorough they are. It's detail most people wouldn't even think about, right?
definitely not.
And just to give you a sense of the scale of testing, they have teams of microbiologists, chemists, water treatment specialists. They conduct or oversee something like 150,000 analyses of water samples every single year.
150,000.
And these samples come from everywhere. Untreated water, the treatment plants, out in the service areas, even like right from customer taps. So the bottom line for you as a visitor, yes, you can confidently drink the tap water in Miami-Dade. It's safe. It's rigorously monitored.
Okay, that's really good to know. Puts that concern to rest. Now let's pivot to another major topic for anyone visiting a new city.
Yeah.
Safety. We've got official crime stats here from the sheriff's office, but also this really interesting local discussion, kind of boots on the ground perspective. So starting with the numbers, what do they tell us about crime in Miami-Dade County? Say comparing early 2024 to early 2025.
Right. Looking at the official data for what they call Part 1 crimes, these are the major offenses. There are some pretty significant downward trends, which is good news. Homicide offenses, for instance, dropped by over 17%, went from 23 incidents down to 19 in that Jan-April period. Robbery saw a big decrease too, almost 20%, down from 323 to 260. Aggravated assaults also down over 17%, burglary down more than 12%. Even rape offenses saw a drop of nearly 10%. So the overall trend in major categories is positive.
Okay, those are definitely encouraging numbers for anyone thinking of visiting, reassuring. But, sometimes the overall stats don't quite match individual feelings or worries about, say, petty crime. What about those kinds of concerns for tourists?
Exactly. That's where the nuance comes in. While those major violent crimes decreased, some other things shifted. Shoplifting, for example, actually went up by almost 9%.
Oh.
But interestingly, things that might worry a tourist specifically, like purse snatching or theft from a coin machine, both of those saw a 100% decrease, meaning zero incidents reported in that 2025 period.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, none reported. And theft from a motor vehicle, another common concern, that also decreased by over 22%. So it's a mixed bag, but some specific tourist worries actually saw improvement according to these stats, which leads into that local discussion.
Right, that Reddit thread. There was a specific question from a young visitor worried about walking in certain areas, mentioning tent cities full of addicts. What did the locals have to say about places like Wynwood, Buena Vista, or areas west of I-95?
Yeah, that discussion was fascinating. It really gave you that mix of local knowledge and strong opinions. The areas the person asked about as 2 and 3 on their map, Wynwood, Buena Vista, Midtown, the design district people generally said those are quite safe to walk around, especially during the day. They used words like decent, gentrified, chic. You saw comments like 3 is fine, 23 is super safe walkability. Pretty positive for those spots.
Okay, so those popular areas get a thumbs up, mostly.
Mostly, yeah, during the day. But then you get strong warnings about other areas, especially after dark. Phrases like, hell no to one, referring to one specific zone, and comments like, anything west of the I-95, may God protect you. That's referencing more working class areas, parts of Liberty City, maybe. It really highlights how safety perceptions can change drastically, block by block sometimes in Miami.
That makes sense for a big city. So what were the specific tips or warnings for a visitor walking around?
Yeah.
Especially about those 10 city fears.
Well, common sense advice mostly, like avoiding walking right under overpasses. Several people mentioned that's where homeless individuals tend to congregate. One person said you might encounter a drug dealer crackhead that'll try to befriend you and ask for cash. Another mentioned seeing Skid Row type stuff under overpasses.
Right, so situational awareness is key.
Totally. The advice was basically, mind your business, walk with intent, look like you know where you're going, don't be distracted or obviously lost or drunk. Also, don't be flashy with expensive items, and keep a few feet distance from strangers who approach you. Some locals even just said, look, use Uber or Lyft, especially at night if you're unsure about an area, don't risk walking.
Good practical tips.
And another really interesting point from that discussion, people really push back against some online crime maps. Apparently, some maps rate really affluent places like Brickell or Key Biscayne as F for safety, and locals were calling those maps whack or garbage.
Why would that be?
Well, it suggests that those generalized maps might not capture the type of crime or the actual risk to a visitor. Maybe they count every minor incident equally. The key insight for a visitor, I think, is don't just rely on one source. Those stats are useful, but local knowledge about how an area feels, when it feels safe, that's invaluable. You need both.
Triangulate the information. Got it. And there's that one uniquely Miami warning that stood out.
Yeah. Someone wrote, crime aside, it's not safe to be a pedestrian in Miami, BC. You're at risk of getting hit by a car if you're not self-aware.
So watch out for traffic.
Exactly. Pedestrian safety is a real thing there. But overall, the local advice echoes common sense. Be vigilant, be aware, don't make yourself an easy target. And if you are looking for areas consistently cited as very safe, especially for longer stays or rentals, places like Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Fisher Island, Key Biscayne often come up. They tend to have more security, sometimes gated communities, 24/7 police presence, that sort of thing. Extra peace of mind, maybe?
Okay, let's shift to our final section. Weather and preparedness. Miami's got that amazing sunshine, but it's also hurricane territory, plus intense heat, flooding. For you as a visitor, being ready for this stuff is really, really important. What does the official Miami-Dade County guide say?
This part is crucial, honestly, especially if you're traveling during hurricane season. That runs from May 1st all the way through October 31st.
That's a long season.
It is. And the guide specifically calls out tourists. It says, quote, listen to announcements from your hotel, cruise line, or airline. Be sure to follow any orders issued by local officials, such as evacuation and sheltering. So it's a direct instruction. Being a visitor doesn't mean you ignore evacuation orders or official advice. Your hotel should be a key source of info.
Right. You're part of the local picture while you're there. What are the main natural threats the guide highlights?
It focuses on 3 main things: extreme heat, flooding, and of course, hurricanes. Hurricanes can also bring tornadoes and storm surge. And storm surge, the guide emphasizes, is the greatest threat to life and property. It's not just wind. This wall of water can travel miles inland, reach heights over 20 feet. It's serious stuff. And importantly for visitors, evacuation orders are based on specific storm surge planning zones, not just the hurricane category number. Knowing your zone, even for a hotel, could be critical.
Wow, okay, so if the worst happens and a visitor needs to shelter or evacuate,
Yeah.
what should they realistically have ready, even for a short trip, like a mini could?
Yeah, the disaster kit checklist in the guide is really useful, even scaled down for a visitor. The key things are water. They recommend a gallon per person per day, ideally for 3 to 7 days, but even having some extra is good. Non-perishable snacks, any essential prescription meds, personal hygiene stuff, a basic first aid kit. Also, keep your phone and maybe a portable charger fully juiced up. Have some cash on hand because ATMs and card readers might go down. And keep important documents, ID, hotel confirmation, flight info, maybe in a waterproof bag or container.
Things that can make a huge difference.
Exactly. And if you do end up going to a public evacuation center, remember space is limited, like 20 square feet per person. So pack light, just the absolute essentials.
Good to know. And what about people traveling with pets? Lots of folks do that now.
Yes, the guide is super clear on this. In case of an evacuation, take your pets with you. Don't leave them behind. Miami-Dade has pet-friendly evacuation centers, PFECs. Now, they're primarily for residents in high-risk zones, but the requirements are good for any pet owner to know. You'd need proof of residency for your lodging, a few days' supply of food, water, meds for your pet. A carrier is essential. ID tags, vaccination records, and you have to stay with your pet at the center. They accept dogs, cats, ferrets, hamsters, common birds, some rabbits, even reptiles if they're in a proper travel enclosure, just no glass tanks.
That's surprisingly comprehensive. They've really thought about pets.
They have. It shows how seriously they take preparedness for everyone.
Okay, so beyond the big storms, what about the more everyday Miami challenges? That intense heat and the flooding.
Right. The heat is no joke. The guide points out that extreme heat, especially when the feels like temp hits 100 degrees or more, is actually the #1 weather-related killer in the U.S.
Wow, number one.
Yeah. So for visitors, especially if you're older, pregnant, have kids, or overweight, or planning lots of outdoor stuff, hydration is critical. Drink tons of water, wear light, loose clothing, avoid really strenuous activity in the hottest part of the day, find shade. And that warning bears repeating. Never leave kids or pets in a parked car, not even for a minute.
Absolutely crucial. And the flooding.
South Florida's rainy season is roughly mid-May to mid-October, and because the area is so flat and the water table is high, heavy rain can cause street flooding really fast. You see those pictures sometimes. And the guide has a very specific, interesting piece of advice for everyone, including visitors. Do not open manholes to alleviate street flooding. People might think it helps drain the water faster, but it actually overwhelms the sewer system. It can cause wastewater overflows, which is a whole other problem you don't want. It shows how everything's connected, infrastructure and environment.
Fascinating detail. Don't touch the manholes.
Pretty much.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you, our listener, thinking about visiting Miami-Dade?
I think the deep dive really shows Miami-Dade is this incredibly vibrant, exciting place, and it's also surprisingly well managed behind the scenes. But like any major destination, right, being informed just makes your trip better. It enhances your experience and definitely your safety, whether it's knowing the water's safe, understanding how locals view different neighborhoods, or being ready for a sudden downpour or, worse. A little knowledge really empowers you as a visitor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about finding the fun spots. It's about knowing how to navigate the city smartly, how to be prepared, confident, and the information is out there. Those water reports, the emergency guides, they might be written for residents, but they are packed with useful stuff for you as a traveler, too, if you just look.
And remember, the county officials, the hotels, they want visitors to be safe and have a good time. Being informed helps you partner with them in that. A prepared visitor is just, well, a stronger visitor, ready to really soak in everything Miami-Dade has to offer without sweating the small stuff or the big stuff unnecessarily.
Well said. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. Next time you're planning any trip to Miami or anywhere else, think about those hidden layers, the infrastructure, the local dynamics, the environment. What are you maybe overlooking? And how could knowing just a little bit more actually change your whole experience?